this. Let me just back a few toward that marginal benefit was throwing us off. I looked at the book again, and I changed it on the one I uploaded, but this is a different version. So let's see if I can find it. Okay, so this marginal benefit, so I was looking at the book, and it took me like 5 times of reading it for it to sink in what they're actually talking about. Let me open it up again. My corrected version isn't up there. But the benefit is not what we're foregoing, it's what we get because we forewent the other good. So, alright, so the marginal benefit from a tape is the amount of people, amount of soda people are willing to forego to get another tape. So in that example, the marginal benefit is the tape because people are willing to forego the soda. Does that make more sense now?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, the way they worded it in the book wasn't good, and then when I was typing it in here, I made some typos, so that didn't help either. Okay.
I had a question just on the definitions in general, because there are a couple words, I think like efficient and market and several others where like there have been different definitions throughout the text. So are you gonna be like looking for a specific one, or is it just like
I'm very
one?
generous in grading your papers, and on some of them I add a few notes if you're not quite there.
Okay.
Or you could be there and I was just like, oh, and by the way, this too. So let me look at some of the ones I graded and I'll give you an example. So, which part was efficient? Efficient, okay. So, when we produce the goods and services that we value most highly, we're being efficient. And then yesterday when we were looking at the graphs, we decided that we're being most efficient when we're at a point where if we want to produce more of one good, we're going to have to go to the production of another good, right? We're at that middle, that center point where the axes cross. Do you remember that? So if you put that, whatever I just read, you got points. If you added the additional, you might have gotten a smiley face.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then on the homework, depending on how tired I am, I'll write in notes. It doesn't mean you got the answer wrong. You could have just kind of expanded a little more. And then this is for your benefit, so I'll get those out back after class for those of you who turned it in. Alright, so going back to Tom. If Tom uses all of his resources to make tape, he can produce 4,000 lengths of tape per hour. So here on the x-axis we have tape, 1,000 of lengths per hour, and he's producing over here at 4, and then you can see on the y-axis he's producing no cases. So that's right here, but in order, if he uses all of his resources to make cases, then he can produce 1,333 cases per hour as we're told in the problem. But in order to produce some of both, he's going to have to give up producing some of the other product, right? He can't produce all of both of those because he doesn't have the resources. So to produce one case, he has to give up 3 lengths of tape. So if he wants to produce 1 of cases, he's going from 4, so 1, 2, 3. He's giving up 3 units of tape, or of tape to make that case, or those cases, right? Is that making sense? Mm-hmm. So for each 1,000 lengths of tape produced, he has to decrease his production by 0.333 or a third. So that was his marginal. The inverse is 3 over 1, 1 over 3, right? Following that? Okay. So his opportunity cost here would be 0.33 case, or case, well, it's not, yeah, 0.33 case to produce 1 length of tape. Follow along? Mm-hmm. Okay. So Nancy is this other producer, and if she uses all of her resources to make tape, she can produce 1,333 lengths of tape in an hour. And if she uses all of her resources To make cases, she can produce 4,000 cases per hour. So it's kind of the opposite of what we just had with Tom. Whereas Tom can make 4,000 lengths of tape per hour, but only can produce 1,333 cases per hour. But Nancy here is the opposite. She can produce more cases than she can tape per hour. So to produce tape, she has to decrease her production of cases, just like the example with Tom, where you have to give us some of one product to produce the other. So for each 1,000 additional lengths of tape produced, her production decreases by 3,000. So that's quite a big opportunity cost as well. So her opportunity cost is 3 cases for each length of tape produced. So if she wants to produce 1 tape, she can't produce 3 cases. Okay. So for each 1,000 cases she produces, she has a decrease production of tape by 333 lengths. Her opportunity cost is 1/3 of a tape as well. So back here on this graph, this change is 0.333, which on a graph, like normally you would label it better and not be working with decimals, but it's not the perfect example. Okay, so at point A on this graph, Nancy has a comparative advantage in producing cases because her opportunity cost of 1 case is only 0.333 length of tape. So over here, tape, producing 1, case 1. So it's not really showing the whole 1/3. Anyway, so Nancy's production possibility frontier is steeper. So this would be Nancy's. Because in order to produce more cases, she has to give up less tape than Tom. Like she can make more cases and tape than what Tom can. And then Tom has a comparative advantage in producing tape, so this would be Tom's, because he can produce, or his possibility frontier is less steep, he has to give up fewer cases to produce more tape. So Tom's opportunity cost is 0.333 cases, Nancy's opportunity cost is 3 cases, Tom's has a lower opportunity cost, he's better at producing tapes. Okay, is this making sense? Okay. So since they both have a comparative advantage, where Tom can make cases at a lower opportunity cost and Nancy can make cases at a lower opportunity cost, or Tom makes tape, cases, since they both have comparative advantage, they would both gain from specializing in just what they're most productive in, or what their lowest opportunity cost is in, and then trading. So they both gain from specialization and exchange. So if Tom puts all of his resources into tape production, back here at point B, and produce 4,000 lengths of tape per hour, and then Nancy puts all of her resources into case production and produces 4,000 cases per hour, together they can double their production and then move outside of the possibility frontier. So they would go from here out to point C. So the gain from specialization they have, but to gain from specialization they're going to have to trade with each other. So at point C they can double their previous production rate. So now Nancy, who had an opportunity cost of 3 lengths of tape, can buy tape from Tom at the price of 1. Does that make sense? So her opportunity cost has gone down because now she's trading with Tom and they're being more efficient. Alright, did that make sense, or any questions on that? Okay. So an absolute advantage is when you're using the same quantity of resources, but you're able to produce more. The example they were giving in the book was comparing 2 goods. We can produce more goods than someone else. Okay, so you're more efficient, you're better at producing things than someone else. You have a lower opportunity cost. So with Nancy, she can produce more, but she'll still have an opportunity cost of 1 tape for 3 cases if she was going to make them herself. So that doesn't change, but by trading, she gains more, and so does Tom. And then available resources and technology determine the comparative advantages that individuals and nations have. So if you're not spending a lot of your resources on new technologies and better ways to produce things, you're going to be kind of back behind the times. But if you're putting your consumption goods, if you're taking or making less consumption good now to make machines or other tools to help you produce more in the future, that possibility, frontier is gonna expand because you're now being more productive. Like if you have a machine that you can make 75 guitars an hour, whereas before you could only make 25, your frontier has expanded, right? And then learning by doing. By repeatedly producing a particular good or service, people become more productive in that activity. In a sense, practice makes perfect. So, on an individual basis, if you're trying to remember how to spell the word entrepreneur, write it 500 times, you're gonna know how to spell it. You might mess it up like the first couple times, but by the 10th or 11th one, you have it down. So practice makes perfect. So as you're producing something, as you're working on it, you might think, well, okay, if I hold my hand this way instead of this way, I can go around twice as fast on what I'm producing, and therefore my output is greater. So learning by doing, you're repeatedly producing a particular good or service, and then you become more good at producing that item. A dynamic comparative advantage is kind of based on the learning by doing. So a comparative advantage that a person or country possesses as a result of having specialized in a particular activity, and as a result they become the producers, or it's a type of producer, with the lowest opportunity cost. So the more skills, the lower the opportunity cost.
For the quiz or the test or whatever is next week, for the words that we need to know, are you gonna have like all the definitions in the word bank, or?
That's how I started it, but the more I think about it, I might just do the word and you give the definition. You would probably be better off, because when I gave the word bank, some of you got a lot of points because of that. But if you're giving me a definition, I can be a little more generous with the grading, so.
If we forget the definition,
You better study.
To do that.
Well, this test, like this quiz that you have on Monday, you have to be able to complete it within half an hour. So it's not gonna be a very long quiz. And so I'm gonna kind of have, most of the problems are at least 3 points each. So if you're missing multiple problems, your test score is gonna drop, because if I'm not giving multiple points per thing, your test would be even lower if you missed one. So just be familiar with the vocab. You won't have to worry so much about chapter 2 with like the graphing vocab, like the slope. I'll probably ask, well, I won't ask you the definition of slope, so I was just on your homework, but you'll have to know, like definitely know what economics is. Based on your homework, the correct answer is yes, it is a science of choice, but why? Expand that. Expand that definition. It's because we face scarcity. We have limited resources. We have to make choices between two different goods because we can't have them both because of the principle of scarcity. So expand that, and that will definitely help you out.
Is that's supposed to say
Producer, yeah, it's a
Producer.
typo, sorry. All right. With the market economy, individuals and countries gain through specialization of goods and services they produce, in which they have a comparative advantage and by trading with each other. So like in that example with Tom and Nancy, each of them had a different comparative advantage. By trading, they were both better off. So on a global scale, if our country is better at producing cars, and we're trading with, let's say, England, and they're better at producing tea, we can trade with them. I don't know. Like, you can just think outside the box. But if their opportunity cost is lower, you want to trade with them, so that way that lowers your opportunity cost to get the item. Okay, so tomorrow we'll finish this up. I think there's a couple more slides. There is this full presentation on